I even wore my Honolulu blue this weekend, and it just didn't seem to help. Maybe I'll have to borrow that Patriot sweatshirt over there. No. Have you ever been asked the question, do you come from a big family? I know I've been asked. In the past, the response to that question was almost always yes. It was a time when many people lived on farms with large families of 3 generations, grandparents, parents, and children, living close together, surrounded by lots of sisters and brothers and cousins. Even in cities, it was not uncommon only a few decades ago for many fathers and sons, mothers and daughters to work in the same factory or business, live in the same neighborhood, and gather together frequently with a real sense that everyone was family, connected to each other by love, by life, and by work. Once it seemed that everyone came from a big family, but not so much anymore. The U.S. Census Bureau estimated that the average household in the United States in 2010 had 2.58 people. Not even 3 whole people. Over 7 million people in the United States live in a different state this year from where they lived last year. Think, for example, how many of our family members have moved in our lifetime? Over 40 million people who live in the United States today were not born here. Putting these things together, most of us no longer live in the midst of the families into which we were born, but within families that we have made. So the question, do you come from a big family, takes on a very different meaning. On this Feast of the Holy Family, the Christmas season starts with only 3 people: Mary, Joseph, and Jesus. But then their cast of character grows exponentially. The little family of Mary, Joseph, and the baby Jesus in Luke's Gospel encounter Simeon and Anna when they go to the temple to offer thanks to God for the safe birth of both Mary and Jesus, and to pray for the continued well-being of their family. It is there in Luke's Gospel that for the first time, the story of Jesus' birth takes on an unexpected twist. For it is in Luke's Gospel that we meet Simeon. He enters the picture with good news and bad news, sort of what always happens when people move from one place to another. First, the good news, that Jesus will be a revelation of God to the people. But then the bad news, that his revelation will not always be welcome. This tiny child will grow into a sign that will be contradicted. And as if that wasn't enough, Anna enters the picture, who was even more faithful in attending to God in the temple than Simeon. And she starts to tell all who were awaiting the redemption of Jerusalem that it is time to thank God for sending Jesus into the world. Mary, Joseph, and Jesus came from the little town of Nazareth to the big city of Jerusalem, and it is there that big things started to happen. If anyone has moved from a small town or even from one neighborhood in a big city to another that always felt like home as they were growing up, we know that good things and bad things always seem to come our way. new good neighbors and new bad neighbors. And new opportunities for school or shopping always show up, even as we miss our old church or our old neighborhood park. How do we handle these new situations? Well, Sirach reminds us of our duty not to abandon the important relationships that we already have, even though they may now be long-distance relationships. Paul wrote to the Colossians about our call to treat others, whether in new relationships or old, with compassion, with kindness, with humility, with gentleness, and with patience. There is no better advice for keeping old friends or making new ones. Simeon said that God is at work among all peoples, so that we should not fear to build positive relationships with those who are new to us or different from those we have known in the past. Anna was persistent. She never left the temple, and so we are to be prepared to we are not to give up building new relationships, even when it is hard work. Do you, do I, come from a big family? Perhaps the greatest symbol of family connections in human history is to regularly gather around a common table. My friends, when we gather around the table of the Eucharist, we are called to remember that we are joined together by God's love, and each of us is folded into the biggest family of all, into God's everlasting family. Amen.